You know, it's difficult sometimes to talk about Valve and its Steam distribution platform. Everything Valve does is this strange mix of genius and infuriating lack of communication. Like a tempestuous god, Gaben and his secretive cult do things that at first seem totally misguided or just plain baffling, but in the long run, they turn out to be the right decision, for the most part. When Steam first launched with Half-Life 2, we all basically thought we lost the plot. If Half-Life 2 wasn't such a groundbreaking and important game, there was a good chance that people would have just skipped it, instead of putting up with the clunky digital distribution system Valve was pushing on us all those years ago. Fast forward to the present day, and it's not an exaggeration to say that Steam has basically saved PC gaming from itself. For those who don't remember, there was a time not too long ago where DRM and game piracy on PC were in an arms race, for the only outcome being mutually assured destruction. For those of us on the sidelines, it meant that gaming on a PC was becoming a hassle for everyone. Developers didn't want to make PC games because they wouldn't make the money they wanted, and gamers didn't want to put up with all the DRM bullshit. I kid you not, myself and many others would allegedly crack our legitimate games just because the DRM was such a pain in the ass. Steam fixed this by making DRM nearly invisible to the user, while giving the developers somewhere to sell their games with confidence. Steam is now such a core part of PC gaming that to a lot of people, Steam is PC gaming. The platform has been going from strength to strength. It helped to reduce the cost of game distribution and provided a place where both AAA and tiny indie game studios could thrive and find their audiences. If it wasn't for Steam, fantastic indie games such as Stardew Valley, Hyper Light Drifter, and Undertale would sadly not have been as big as they became. This video is, however, not about the many things that Steam does right. It's actually about one of the biggest mistakes of Steam's history: Greenlight. Steam is not a free-for-all. Just like the Apple App Store, they have rules about who can and cannot sell their games through the Steam store. It makes sense if a supermarket sold you something illegal or something catastrophically bad. It would damage their brand. Ultimately, they are responsible for what ends up on their shelves. The Steam digital store is no different. That means you need some sort of curation system to decide which games make it onto those virtual shelves. In the case of AAA or other games from big, well-known publishers, it's not a big issue. Usually, you can make a deal with a publisher like Rockstar or Ubisoft to publish all their games because you can trust them to curate themselves. The thing is, though, that there are thousands and thousands of smaller game developers. I should know since I'm part of one. Just working with the big boys excludes a lot of great and potentially profitable games from being on Steam. On the other hand, it would take an army of people to curate all those game submissions. Then, Valve just had a sudden realization, and they realized that, hey, we already have an army of people who are rating things on Steam, and this is what led to Greenlight. For those of you who don't know, if you aren't a big developer, you can use Greenlight to submit your game for consideration. All you need to do is submit a few media items such as screenshots and then pay $100. Then people can vote the submissions that they want to see, and winners get published on Steam. It's a great idea in principle and leverages something that social scientists refer to as the wisdom of crowds. If enough people vote, the best stuff will rise to the top and everyone will be happy, right? Well, it actually turns out that when you put a set of rules in place, people will figure out how to game the system and take advantage of those rules. Which is why Greenlight has been responsible for the utter flood of terrible shovelware titles. According to GameSpy, a full 80% of the Steam catalog was released in 2014, 2015, and 2016. 2016 alone accounts for 38% of the total Steam library. As you can imagine, there's just no way in hell all of those games are quality titles. Now, Steam is filled with truckloads of zero-effort, quote-unquote, games with ultra-dodgy business practices. There are titles that are just content-free shells. Some titles use stolen or just generic assets. They're buggy, broken, and they should have never left the computers of talentless trolls who wrote them with the explicit purpose of scamming a few dollars from unsuspecting Steam users. Now, understandably, I don't want to shit on Steam too much here, because they have done a few things to try and limit the negative impact of Greenlight. Specifically, the refund system now works pretty well, which limits any financial damages you may suffer if you accidentally pay for a steaming pile of shit. I also think that the introduction of Steam's curators has done a lot to help people steer away from the shovelware. That's not a solution to the problem, however, it's only bandages. With such a juicy opportunity on offer, lots of people don't want to leave it to chance or go through the pain and cost of marketing, so they just cheat. One common tactic is to buy votes with free copies of the game, something which Valve frowns on heavily, but basically can almost do nothing about it. The writing has been on the wall for a long time, and Greenlight has turned into a cancer that's outgrown its host. Another year of that and Steam might have became 99% trash. So it comes with great relief to hear that Gabe is canning Greenlight and replacing it with something new called Steam Direct. Although Valve almost never talks to us, we do know that the company is always watching and is incredibly data-driven. So while the tumor that is Greenlight slowly grew to lethal proportions, they were undoubtedly watching and learning from it. I also think this is excellent work done by users to weed out bad Greenlight games, putting in time and effort needed for the greater good of the community, and that too did not go unnoticed by Valve. We don't know all that much about Steam Direct just yet, but I find it hard to believe that it's not going to be an improvement on Greenlight. Let's be honest here, if Gabe Newell hired a dog to randomly paw a yes or a no button, we'd probably have a way better selection of games on Steam than Greenlight has given us. Still, I'm choosing to be positive about this development for the most part. First of all, it tells us that Valve knows Greenlight is a serious failure. Knowing them, they wouldn't have even said anything unless they were confident their new thing was a solution to the old problem. Always remember that accepting there's a problem is always the first step. To me, I see this as a start of some sort of controlled curation. Steam Direct will involve each developer applying for admittance directly to Valve, filling in paperwork and paying for a still undecided application fee, which they'll get back if they aren't trying to submit some BS scam game. Their specific words were, and I quote, "We want to make sure Steam is a welcoming environment for all developers who are serious about treating customers fairly and making quality gaming experiences." Which I read as them being fed up with all these jackasses who have access to Unity spending a weekend on their new game Poops Loader and then rigging the votes to expose it to us. Honestly, with this much money flowing through the Steam store, Valve can literally no longer afford to be hands-off. If Steam eats itself alive, everyone will lose out. I know that if Valve needed money, they could just release Half-Life 3 and then take all of it, but for now, their biggest business is Steam. It's time for their baby to grow up and wear the big boy pants. It's not as if Greenlight never did any good either. There are at least 100 Greenlight games that have made more than $1 million each, according to Valve. That's a lot of cash and content that would have never made it without the project. It's just a pity that accolades like this were almost drowned out by the noise of thousands of badly made games. I'm very excited for Steam Direct and its potential to make things better for PC gamers. I do have a few suggestions for Gabe and friends too.
You broke it! Congratulations! He's still playing a true gamer.
For one, they're still debating how much to make the application fee. You need that fee to keep jokers and scammers from scamming you, but how much is fair? Right now they're debating anything around $100 to $5,000. Personally, as a small indie dev, I think the average should be somewhere around $500. $100 just isn't an amount that will easily deter someone these days. I also hope that Steam Direct will include more automated and labor-saving curation tools. Maybe something that detects common Unity assets in a game and red flags it for review by a human. Better reporting tools and automation for the public couldn't hurt either. However, there is a possible double-edged sword scenario we have in front of us. By increasing the amount of the application fee to submit your game to Steam, actual indie devs who don't have a lot of money and they pour their soul into a good small little game project may be turned away from a steeper buy-in price for their game. While it may hurt visibility for gamers to find out about cool small indie games, it may also create a decent alternative marketplace via Itch.io, and I'm sorry if I butchered that, or GOG's Marketplace New Indie initiative. Ultimately, if the application fee is fair and their Discovery 2.0 or whatever they want to call it works like it should, then it should in theory make no difference to Steam users. I could see more quality games entering the Steam store and finally showcasing the best of them from a quality standpoint, but indies without a huge marketing budget may see some negative effects from Steam Direct. As with most Valve communication, this was a little out of the blue, but I for one am very excited that our PC overlords are making positive noise about a serious problem that's been building like a cancer for years. The timing couldn't be any more impeccable unlikable, especially after I even mentioned this as a big negative of gaming in my 2016 review video. I just wish it hadn't gone on for so long, and I just wish Valve would be more transparent and talk more often. But at least this seems to be a positive change when many of us started thinking that being on top was making certain people way too comfortable.